Welcome to Efsti Dalur. My name's Īsak. This is my family's farm. We've had this place since the 1750s. We are now 7th, 8th, and 9th generation down here. Farmers of Efsti Dalur. Belongs to my aunt and uncle, and they hire me to run it. Long story short is that we're dairy farmers. We have 40 to 45 cows milking at any given time. We have about 70 bulls for meat production, 40 horses, 10 chickens, 6 dogs, bunch of kids. That's the kind of basics of what we do in agriculture. In terms of tourism, we use our farm as the basis for our, let's say, tourism business. So when I was a kid, we were running here a little bed and breakfast. We are now expanding our, let's say, hotel. At the moment, we have 11 hotel rooms and 2 3-bedroom cottages. We're in the process of building another 15 rooms, if you saw these diggers and stuff outside. We use our horses for a horse rental, so we take guests on tours here. We have these Icelandic horses, and we take them up on tours here in the mountains. And then we use our farm to basically run this farm-to-table restaurant. So it's kind of a twofold concept. On the one hand, we could use our farm to make this kind of unique dining experience where you have all local products, all stuff from us, and it makes this fun experience for the guests. On the other hand, as farmers, you can get a little bit more money out of your agricultural products by being able to sell them yourself in-house. So we raise all the meats for our restaurants, use our milk for the ice creams and cheeses. We serve mostly meats to cheese and ice cream for that reason. Lots of neighbors around us who grow things like salad, tomatoes. Some of them have lamb, some of them are catching fish, so we can buy in all this local produce. And when you cut out the middlemans, like if you look at it just as a restaurant, when you're able to cut out the middleman, you have a little bit more margin to work with as a restaurant as well. So actually being a farmer and a restaurateur together works pretty well. Get lower prices for your stuff in your restaurant, higher prices for your stuff in your farm. So everybody wins. You're sitting in what used to be our hay barn. Nowadays this was our restaurant. We ran our first restaurant out of my aunt and uncle's living room. At some point they were like, guys, I'd like to live in my house. Like, if you want to have a restaurant, here's an empty building, go at it. And this was actually my aunt's idea to create this, let's say, windows down here where you can see the animals and interact with them, let's say. But it's not a fully open farm. It's just a conventional farm, everything on display. Animals actually get quite anxious when they are exposed to lots and lots of people, and it isn't really good for, let's say, animal welfare to have very, very many people exposed to them, especially with cows. They're very picky with what people they want to spend time around. So this way you can kind of have an uninterrupted life for them, but we can get some kind of experience. The tourism became part of this business mostly out of necessity. Pretty much every farmer you'll find in Iceland, unless they have a very large farm, is going to have some kind of second job or second source of income. A farm of this size is maybe big enough to support, parents and a few kids, something like that. We're 11 family altogether, plus the kids, so we need to have more stuff to do. But most farmers who run farms of this size will have a day job, or they will have a contracting business, or they will have, some people chose to build these little guest houses or cottages. Some chose, like up here in the mountain, to sell little pieces of land to create holiday homes for people that live in the city. My aunt was always, let's say, not a trained chef, but big fan of it, and she used to make these things like the cheeses and the ice creams just at home. She rather wanted to go for that approach. My uncle wanted to double the size of the farm. and get 100 cows. My aunt wanted restaurant, and like always, the women always win these discussions. So the restaurant was built, and we've been doing that ever since. Wouldn't those way? Pretty much. It's been growing pretty nicely, just tourism in Iceland in general. We having this, let's say, starts as a small family business. We opened this place here in 2013. At that time, it's very seasonal. You know, you make your money June, July, August, and then you survive the rest of the year. It's for the first time now, about 11 times later, that this is becoming a year-round consistent industry. Like in the past, a lot of places in the countryside, they would just shut over winter because it didn't make sense. But we are fortunate that our farm just so happens to be in the Golden Circle. So as this kind of tourism sector is growing, it's becoming more and more possible for us to run the business all year round. Lots of benefits to that. More work is, of course, always good. But for example, when you're trying to run a business that requires a lot of people, not being able to have jobs all year round means that a lot of your best people don't want to stay. Now it's for the first time, 23, 24, you're able to have like a big core team that you can actually support throughout the whole winter. Of course, it's still very seasonal. We receive 10,000 guests in July. We receive 1,000 guests in December, so it's quite different. But we are able to have about 25 full-time staff all year round, and we need about 20 extra over summer, both for the farm and for the hospitality side. I can talk endlessly about food or farming or tourism or whatever it may be. Maybe you guys can tell me if there's any areas you're specifically interested in that something you'd like to know.
Yeah. Are you a member of like some of the Icelandic tourism associations? Are you Percy cluster?
Yeah. For the first time last year, I joined the company into SAF, which is the Icelandic Tourism Association that's part of Samtök Atvinnulífsins. I don't know if those are the terms that you guys have known them by, but it's a few. There was always in the past, there was a union that we're still in called Ferðaþjónustu bænda, which was called like the Farmers Tourism Union. That was designed for lots of rural farmers who have maybe few guest rooms, little things, because as the industry was growing, you had very many very small places who had maybe just 5 or 6 rooms. They couldn't have a voice in, individually, they could not have a voice in those discussions on a national level. They formed this union so that their representatives can kind of lobby for this group as a whole. This group is still around, but we are still in it. But our business has maybe gone a little bit outside of the scope of that union. So we are now in SAF, which is, Union of Tourism Companies. And I'm going, for example, on Wednesday, they have their 2024 restaurant and hotels general meeting where they're going to go over projections for next year, numbers for this year. People have a chance to share their experiences. So it's new to us to be doing it at that level, let's say. But there are many smaller groups within tourism as well. I am a board member of Farm to Table Iceland, so this is the ones who run the Farm to Table movement. Within that, there's both people who sell just, businesses direct to consumer, and some places like us that had restaurants. That's another great place for us specifically to be, although that's more to do with the food production side than the tourism side, let's say. And there's a small local union as well for companies within the Golden Circle. It's not as active as I think it should be, but it exists.
If it's not a secret, how much do you pay for being a member on the staff, and is it worth it?
SAF does not have a fixed rate. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they take a small percentage cut of turnover of business. So it isn't actually very much, in my opinion. From what I can remember, it's a few thousand euros a year. So it's not serious amounts. Of course, the bigger your company is, the larger that becomes, because it's based on, it's from what I remember, based on number of staff, turnover, and to some extent profitability. There's some calculation to it. I think it's worth it personally. I'm a big numbers and statistics type of guy. I like to have hard data to make some kind of predictions. You know, in the past, we were always going into next year pretty much blind. You would just be thinking, okay, this year was like this, I think next year will be more. But you maybe don't have concrete something with you except what they release in the news. Nice thing about being in these groups is also just getting access to people who do the statistical analysis. There are representatives there from the banks and from the like tourism boards who can give you information on a national level, and it's a really good place to talk to others who are in the industry and get a feeling for, you know, how was your business this year? What changes do you notice? Do you see anything shifting? What are you expecting for next year? And a lot of very interesting information comes there that you can use to plan your next year. So I think it's worth that. Also, a component of it is that for us, one thing is that we used to always have a very small staff. Now we have quite a large staff. When I was starting here, when I was a kid, we were 10. This year we were 52. And these unions, for example, have like SAF. They have specialists and lawyers in there who can guide you on things like the new salary contracts. How should you be with staff? What are the expectations? You get a lot of help in growth. So we as a company are going through this phase of going from being small to mid-sized, a lot of challenges that follow, and then you have them as a support that you can always call and like, hey, I've never had to, do this before. What do you think? And they'll tell you, yeah, I have an expert on it. They'll call you in an hour, and then you can get a lot of good information.
That's all. Yeah, it's a point. But another important thing about being in a tourist posture is working together with your neighbors.
Yeah.
So do you do that? If a guest comes here and they have an ice cream or a lunch, would you recommend you should go to my neighbor, they are doing this, that, and that?
Definitely.
Let's let me.
Definitely. That's a big part of it. It isn't done on a very high level, I would say. It isn't super structured and organized on the local level. On a personal level, we do it all the time. Everyone that comes here to get an ice cream, I tell them, why don't you go to Fontana and try the rye bread experience? Why don't you go to Gullfoss Geysir? Hotel Geysir has this, and that going on. Why don't you go to Friðheimar and you had dinner here with us? If you're going over to the Golden Circle tomorrow, why don't you go and check out the tomato greenhouse? So one thing that's funny about being in this kind of let's say rural area, you know all these people. This isn't just competitors, this is people you went to school with, and this is friends of yours. And there's a very friendly spirit in it. Like, everybody benefits from everybody growing. There's definitely a support network. Every time I've had an overbooking or a problem here, I'm able to pick up the phone and call one of these companies and just say, hey, I have a problem, can you help me out? And the answer I'll get is, of course, no problem. And then the same goes. So being part of it as a community is really important, because we can all help each other to do better. When everybody does better, there's no losing. But we've also been fortunate in that sense, in that tourism in Iceland has been, of course, some years different, but generally speaking, expanding. So there's just more, let's say, guests to go around for everyone, and everybody wins. At some point you'll reach some kind of plateau where it'll start to level off. And what happens then hard to say. I hope that it will remain so friendly, but more competition will come into it eventually.
I mentioned that everything you make here and grow here, it stays here. Why don't you just resell it? Like we have contacted some flowers and other restaurants.
There's a few reasons. The main reason is that we just can't produce enough. We are making everything super old school, handmade. We can barely produce enough just for our restaurant. Demand in the restaurant has gotten so much that, we are running that room down there. Now it's a little calmer, but in summer it's running 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's just to meet the supply for the restaurant. So that's one reason. We are in the process of building a new factory so we can make more. But the second reason is also food is very tightly regulated in Iceland. And there's some, but there isn't really a middle step between being a micro producer and being a large producer. So we've been missing a little bit these classifications for these medium-sized producers of food. What that means is, for example, if we want to produce our products to just sell in the stores, we have to meet all the same rules and health and safety guidelines as the largest dairy companies in the country. Now, small producers are not going to be able to do that because you just can't. Just equipment-wise, you just can't meet all the same. There are, through this farm-to-table union, and there's this union of micro producers called SSFF. There are ways to do it. That's something that we've been, let's say, curious about. But to some extent, it's a different market. Like here, we are producing just direct for consumption at the restaurant. We don't sell anything out for us to take home. Occasionally, if we have a little bit too much cheese or something, we'll put it in the coffee house for sale. But it's a different market is what I'll say. And in the future, it's something that we would be interested in, but our priority is just being able to get the most out of what we have now. Because already there's more demand for visits and tastings and products here on site than we can meet. So the first step has to be to meet that before we can look outwards.
Okay, I have just last.
As much as you like.
But is there something else? Is there something different, extra that you do in off season than in summer, or you just do the same and take a deep breath?
All kind of things. In terms of, let's say, service, we keep it more or less the same. We have the cafe, we have the restaurant, we have the hotels. That's pretty standardized. Now for us, where we do things, what we use our off-seasons to do is building up the business again. So every year, if we can manage to turn a profit, all the profit straight away turned back into improving our place in some way. Whether that be basic stuff like painting and some concrete and some finishing things like that. Or like now in our off-season, we're building this new hotel so that we can go bigger for the next year. The way that we've always worked it has been we're pushing, working from like May until September, October. From October until April, we are working on ways to develop the farm. We do random projects in between as well. We have a lot of heavy machinery. Sometimes we do contract work. Sometimes we go and build houses, or sometimes we will take foundations, or we'll do snow clearance, like random stuff, because you still just need income in the winter, especially if you're trying to keep let's say, bigger staff than you need because you want to hold on to a quality staff. You just need to keep the money coming in. And it is quite difficult to do that on a service level here in winter, because if the weather is bad, people aren't coming no matter what they're doing. In January 23, there were road closures 15 days out of 31. So half the month people couldn't even come here if they wanted to. So like we've often discussed, we can do some events, we can do some this, that, and the other. We do that often in if the weather's like this. But once it starts to get really, really tough, you can't rely on customers just physically being able to come here. So we use the time for marketing. We go to the travel shows. We spend time in Reykjavik visiting the agents, going to like basically the most of the winter goes into preparing for the next year, whether it be in construction or marketing or salesmanship or renovations, whatever.
You know, like extra off-season tourism deals, like buy one get or something.
Nothing outside of the ordinary, I would say. We've tried it multiple times in the past, but the point for us specifically has been that it really doesn't make a difference, because we're in this type of location that's very difficult to get to. People have to be very committed to coming here in wintertime if they're going to come here. For example, in the restaurant, let's say buy one get one free on a burger or something, it really makes almost no difference whether people are coming or not, if I'm honest. You would think it would. We have a second restaurant in town. There it actually works, because there you have a customer base who can walk and come very easily and things like that. Here, where there are a lot of more Icelanders that come. If you are in Reykjavik and there's a store, it might be 2.5 hours for you to get here. And you have to be really, really decided, I'm going to Efsti Dalur if it's going to go. Giving someone buy one, get one free really doesn't change that in my experience. But we do things on this with the school. We invite them to come bring the kids and have some lessons on how the food is made. We use it a lot of times to take groups like you guys to just come and tell people what we're doing and try to get us a little bit known. Wintertime tourism is really tricky in Lahatrusa. It's just tricky. Hotel and everything, we take the prices and just drop them to the floor. We don't have any debts on our place. We can compete with everyone, just tack the rates and get customers in the house. But winter's always winter. Our long-term goal is to just try to create quite a sustainable family business is what we look at it as. So a lot of companies, especially that are in the hotel sector, it seems to always be, get bigger, 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 bigger. That is not our goal at all. What we are aiming towards is we want to have a boutique 30-room hotel with a quality restaurant that has a nice distributed year-round traffic. That's also fun for us to work at, because there are some places that maybe build very large, cheap hotels in the countryside, and they just fill them night after night with groups. They have, I would say it's a limited experience. One thing that we are always trying to do more is we want people to be able to come and meet the locals, get to know real stuff, what happens in Iceland. As the tourism industry expands, the number of just people that the guests can meet that are actually locals who have actually grown up here and know a lot about it, that group is getting always smaller. We want to rather be a little niche. We don't want to be big. We want it to be fun for us to run. That's the goal. 30 rooms, horse rental, 100-seat restaurant, more quality. We've even been discussing now trying to reduce the number of guests we have and trying to spread them around, because when you take on really very many, you are going to sacrifice an experience to some extent, and the experience is more important to us than just how many people walk through our doors. We don't want huge numbers coming in here and think it's nothing special. It's better to have maybe a little smaller group, but to get more time with them and to do more cool things with them. And for us, like we say, this isn't only our business, it's also our home. You know, we live here, we grew up here. We don't want it to be like waking up in the morning like, oh, I have to go to work and it's so bad. Like, it has to be, you know, it's our life, so it has to be fun for us. I like talking to people about things that we're doing. I don't like taking hundreds and hundreds of people for, you know, quick, snappy meal and then walking out the door and barely got to say hi to. So we are trying to, we don't want to necessarily be part of the mass. That's what I say.
Is it more local tourists or outbounders? Or?
It's about 90%, maybe more foreign, about 90%. I would even be pretty confident in saying it's probably closer to 95. There are a lot of Icelanders that come here. There are summer houses. There are 3,000 of these summer cottages in the area. So especially on the weekends and in winter, Icelandic families stop by and they have an ice cream, have a coffee. Sometimes they'll take their kids for horses. Sometimes they'll come here and have dinner. But a majority of it is foreign visitors. And yeah.
So you get the traditional Icelandic Ísbeef too.
Absolutely.
That's very. I told them about the Ísbeef tour earlier.
Yeah, that's common, especially in winter. There's a boarding school in town where all the kids are 16 to 19, 20. It's really common. You'll see here Friday night, 2 17-year-olds on some date coming in the car, get one ice cream, and then go back. That's pretty common.
Like the Icelandic version of American Graffiti. Yeah, they go driving and get ice cream instead of smoke and jerk. Or maybe both.
Could you say the days from Uppy with Guayna and Asbol?
What activity is the most important? Hard to say. I've always said that at its core, what people are looking for in the Golden Circle is natural beauty. Like the thing that people are coming to see is the nature. Everything else is services around that, let's say. So it's the same with Gullfoss and Geysid. They are in essence, you can look at them as service areas that have been built up around some beautiful natural landmark. The same with Þingvellir in that sense. But then what's happening now is, I've said it for quite a long time. In my opinion, it's quite a lot of experience missing in the Golden Circle. There's a lot of opportunity to add more, let's say, activities to do. There's a shortage of restaurants. I'm always surprised how few restaurants there are in the area, considering that 2.5 million people drive past the roads every year. There is some Morsrattle, there's some Buggy, but I would like to see more places developing some kind of unique things to do. Not just places to eat, not just places to sleep, but, aftreying, I don't know what you would call it, experience, I guess. Friðheimar is a great example of that type of place, if you've been there, the tomato greenhouse, where you have this combination of, it's not only somewhere to eat, it's also something to do, because it's so unique. I would say we're maybe in a similar, let's say, category to that, although we're on a little smaller scale. It's not just somewhere to eat or somewhere to get an ice cream. You have some little bonus going on. I'd like to see more of those kind of things. There's one of these nice, everyone in Iceland loves these bathing lagoons. They're coming up everywhere. There's one coming in Laugarás now, which is a town nearby. We're expecting that will boost a little bit, That's a good example of some kind of attraction that people can do that isn't just eating something or sleeping somewhere.
So it's going to be the secret lagoon.
Something like that, yeah. That's...
As we started the day at the secret lagoon,
yeah.
And we actually Friðheimar.
Yeah.
So they're opening another one just next door.
Laugarás.
Okay.
how you market your place? Instead of in off season, you go to touristy fairs, you have agents for those agents, and you are in social media or not?
Until 2023, we had never spent one penny on marketing. We had it wasn't part of what we did. We just were kind of here and people just came. And when I took over the business in 22, one of the things that I wanted to do was to make us more public and more known. So I hired one social media guy. He comes here 6 months of the year, takes pictures and creates a media program and is posting it on Instagram, on Facebook, and just this. He's doing this Google search engine optimization, perfecting our website, this kind of things. Then we're going to the travel fairs. There's one big one in Iceland, which is trying to remember what it's called. It slipped my mind for some reason. Mannavot, which is always in January or February, where all the tourism providers like us have a stand, and then the agents can come and visit. We do some old school marketing, we distribute leaflets and business cards to tourism spots and info centers and hotels and things like that. But a lot of our business goes through travel agencies. So there's a lot of travel agencies in Iceland. There are a lot of them we've been working with since before we even had this restaurant, since, my old bedroom was just being used as a guest room for people. They're from all over the place. There's a few big ones. I can name Terra Nova, Arctic Adventure, Iceland Pro Travel. There are smaller ones like Ferma Company, who specializes in the French. Those are places that are, or companies that deal mostly in hotel rooms. This Ferðaþjónustu bænda, this farmers union, they actually started off having, and still have, they have their own travel agency where they're specializing in farm tours, so we do a lot of work with them. On the food side, we're starting now for the first time since in 22, we're starting to get a lot of series for meals. So sometimes cruise ships, sometimes just travel agencies who create tours. And they use us a lot for for example, people might come and book 20, 30 people, steak from the farm, tasting of all our products. I'll do a talk like this for them about what we're doing. We do a lot of that. We take maybe 100 people for things like that most days. In summer, that is. And then it grows steadily. The majority of the growth in our business has been through these agencies. Don't know if there's anything else you want to know on that front, but when I looked at the hotel bookings, for example, for 2023, it was about 70% of the bookings were coming from travel agencies, as opposed to being booked directly through booking.com or Expedia.
You use also booking.com?
Yeah, we use Booking.com, Expedia, Agoda, Airbnb. We have a direct booking through our website. And then in Iceland, there's it's like a software. It's called Travia. It's like a Booking.com, but for travel agents. So the Icelandic or places like us, we open our hotel room management system is connected to this Travia in the same way that Booking.com is. Travel agents just have the rates added in there through some contracts, and then they can book themselves the people into the rooms. That's been really useful. This Travia is an Icelandic company, and they work with this another software called Godu, which is a hotel PMS software, also Icelandic, and it makes it pretty easy. Everything's very transparent. The agents can just one-click book, type everything in. You don't need to have a receptionist all day manually typing in bookings and taking phone calls from travel agents. They just put it in themselves, and it's very efficient.
Back to the new secret for good. So you say that creating something new and discernible would bring you much more customers. And do you think it's worth it to like create something new and big? And is it the impacts of?
Yeah, it does. It's my opinion in general is that I like seeing our area develop for tourism. I like that the sector is growing. It creates jobs for the locals. It creates sustainable tourism. Because the thing is, I'm not one of those that says more. I don't want always more every time. I would like there to be more to do. One thing that you feel as like running a hotel in the Golden Circle is that most of your guests only stay one night. Because the Golden Circle is pretty close to the capital, a lot of the guests will either do a day trip and they won't even stay in South Iceland, or they will stay one night and then it's part of a bigger thing. One thing that would be great to see in the industry is the guests staying longer in our area. So that instead of having, almost all of your bookings being for one night, you might see more of them for 2 nights or even 3 nights. Or maybe at some point it'll be so that people will stay here for 5, 6 nights.
So it's like when customers come here for you, not for you to be stopped on the road.
Something like that. But I think it's good for the entire area because there really isn't that much for people to do. If you think about it, a very basic Golden Circle, you can leave from Reykjavik at 9 in the morning, you can go to Þingvellir, you can have lunch here, you can see Gullfoss and Geysit, you can get Friðheimar on the way back at 3, 4 o'clock, you go to Kerið, and then you're back in the city by 8. The more things there is to do, the longer people will stay, the more opportunities there are for people in the area. I think it's a positive thing for me, so long as it's sustainable. That's always kind of the big thing. It's always good because also one thing that happens like in this area, just from let's say economics point of view, these towns around the Golden Circle are growing and there's new houses coming in, it leads to more kids in the school, and you get people from the city, for example, moving back into the countryside because for the first time in a long time, there's good jobs available in these areas. So people who have further education, for example, 10 years ago, if you wanted to get a serious job, there was no point in staying here in the Golden area because if you were the teacher, there was just nothing for you to do in the area. You maybe you could run your parents' farm, but there really wasn't an incentive for, young professionals to come and move here and settle here because there wasn't that really high quality work. One thing that happens when the industry develops is places like Friðheimar and Geysit and, for example, this new lagoon or fontana. As they grow, they create really good quality jobs because all of a sudden these companies need finance managers and they need accountants and they need marketing people and they need restaurant managers and they need trained chefs. And it creates a magnet for people who are skilled and qualified to move into the area. And that gives a really good boost to the local population as well. I think that's a good thing. It also creates, it's some debate because tourism, for example, most of the workforce in tourism is on the lower end. It's chefs, it's waiters, it's general, it's housekeeping. Most of these staff are foreign in Iceland, just in general. Some people will put the criticism that as the tourism industry is growing, you get a lot of population increase, but just from people who are seasonal and maybe aren't really going to be part of the community in the long run. I don't know what to feel about that. To some extent, it's a fair criticism. To some extent, not. I mean, we have, for example, Elina, who is here from Latvia. She moved here from Riga when she was 19. She's 27 now and lives with her Icelandic husband or boyfriend. And has no plans to go home and talks Icelandic and becomes part of the community. So I think it's a good thing.
The problem is not the workforce that comes here to work. The problem is how we greet them.
Absolutely. The workforce is always like, we love to have, for me. You know, we have to hire about 15 to 20 people seasonally every year. Some of them are teenagers from the boarding school. Some of them are our cousins and things like that. A lot of them are, for example, young people who come and work on travel. That's really common. But it's also pretty common that some companies, or not even companies, even also on a government level, they are not really committed to making people be part of the communities and embracing it. You don't want to see, you don't want to see foreign micro-communities within your community. You want people to integrate and become part of the whole. And we have to basically do that. You can't tell the individual, well, it's your problem. If you want to be part of it, you have to do that. You have to create ways to take them into it. And a lot of these small places, it's also they're building up, but other criticisms that, for example, big companies will buy up a lot of the housing and use it for seasonal workers who maybe stay for 3 months and then go. That's another criticism that some people take, that, it prevents housing from people who want to settle here. Maybe that's true, maybe not, hard to say. My opinion is that if people want to come and live in our area, we should let them, and why not? But there's always people who are pro and against everything.
Okay. Thanks a lot. And the ice cream was amazing.
Thank you. Glad you liked it. Anything else you guys would like to know? Food or farming or tourism or whatever everything
You
you...
always know you will stay here, but you know, like, stay to be city and
Did I?
Yeah.
No, I did not. When I was 19, this was just starting, I told my aunt and uncle, I'm going to go big. I'm going to go and study, and I'm going to learn finance, and I'm going to be a banker in the city. And then I'm 28 years old, and I'm back on the fuck where I started. Although you're a place fantastically so. Because one thing that happens is the business gets big enough that now I can do the finances at the farm, and it feels like a real job, So it's pretty good.